Once children know you care, even when you're hard on them, they take it. You see, if they think you don't like them.
Right.
So if I wanted just a job, I'd stick to law. I was even a magistrate in the UK, for crying out loud. But it was like every day was a chore getting up. But when you teach children, especially when you see that light come into their eyes when they start decoding
Yes.
with meaning, you just see, gosh, you can actually make a difference in this child's outcomes later on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chatting with the Experts, the TV show where I, the host, bring to you amazing women from Africa and the Caribbean. Every week, when my guests come on, they talk about something that I know is not just interesting to me, but is also interesting to you, the listeners and the viewers. But even more importantly, at the end of the show, you would have learned something new. You would have been inspired or educated on something completely different. But my guest today is Sade Marriott. And Sade is the director of Banana Island School, and she is a fellow podcast host of Banana Island Living Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Paula. How are you?
I am great. Better still that you're here.
Oh, you say all the right things. So yeah, thank you. Yes.
So today, as I said, she's the director of Banana Island School in Lagos. And so today we're going to be talking about the state of education in Nigeria. You're the expert on this. This is
Oh, please.
Yep, that's
Don't
why
give me that top billing because I'm bound to fail spectacularly when you say that. Expert. I mean, I do a podcast with another educationist called Sade. So it's Sade and Sade on education, but we're pretty just frothy stuff and just whatever is happening, topical stuff on education in Nigeria. But yeah, nothing deep or too intellectual.
I'm sure I know you're being modest. I haven't seen or heard.
I wish I was, actually. I wish I was. I'm being modest, but with plenty to be modest about, as they say.
Well, considering you're the director of the school, you must know something about education. Tell me how you even got into that in the first place.
Well, it is the usual boring story. My mother was one of the first Montessori teachers in Nigeria, and she started a school, a Montessori school, and with an amazing nursery. And we lived on the school site, and I swore to myself I'd never, ever go into education because it's such hard work. We never had any holidays because we were always studying or something. And so I totally refused to do education. I went and did law and did a master's. I did an MBA. And I thought, when you're as bad a lawyer as I was, when you start skim reading contracts, you should get out of there before you do some real damage. So I thought what I ever really enjoyed was just teaching children to read. And I thought I'd just go and learn how to teach children to read. And I got into it. I really enjoyed it. And yeah. Fast forward a few career cul-de-sacs, here I am.
There you are. So when you went back to school as you said, your interest was there for children. Did you do that in Nigeria? Did you do it in the UK? Where did you do it?
No, I actually did it I was working in the UK then. I was an education solicitor, education and employment solicitor in a local authority education department. And then I saw gosh, this could be so much better. And I thought, it was in a particularly challenging borough. I lived miles away. I used to commute into London to Hackney, which was where I went.
Okay.
And I thought, good heavens, this is how people go to school here. And in Nigeria, we don't have these facilities. So most of the problems were children not achieving. And I just saw the problems really started in primary school. So I went and did a PGCE at Canterbury Christ Church University. I could still work because I was doing a modular PGCE where you work at home and then you go weekends. I did this over a couple of years. And then you do your placements at the school. So I did 3 placements, 2 at state schools and 1 at prep school. because I've only ever really known private education, but I wanted to see what it was like to be in public education. And it was really quite eye-opening. And yeah, and I thought I could make a lot more impact in Nigeria where it was needed. I mean, it was useful to have learned in England and how they do it and see what people think were the goals was the gold standard, which was maybe bronze standard. Not quite. I went from the really high achieving schools to those that were not so high achieving. So I got the full range of the spectrum, to a prep school that was pretty smart, to one that wasn't. I saw what worked and what didn't work. And what fascinated me and what I wrote my paper on was that tension between creativity and accountability in education. Can you have creativity and can you also have academic rigor? And my argument was that the two are not mutually exclusive. There's no reason, if you've got a passionate teacher with great training and good pedagogical pinning, there's no reason why you can't do that. It just takes a little bit more work. But once you get the children engaged and the teacher has the passion, you can be creative, but you can demand high accountability from the teachers. And I know middle-class children invariably do well, but that, doing exams and doing tracking and assessments is really useful for the children who don't have the support at home. Because you can't assume that everybody will be okay. So how do you measure we can trust teachers, and I do trust teachers, and I know most of them mean well. But, you can teach the same group of children exactly the same thing and with different outcomes. So if you don't track and you don't assess, you don't know where they need support. It's not necessarily testing the staff. It's testing what the children have actually managed to get out of it. What is the value added? So yeah, that was what did for me. And yeah.
And so then with all of that,
I hope I haven't bored you too much. Have I bored you?
Not at all. Have you noticed I'm leaning in?
Okay.
Normally I sit back.
Just checking in, because when I start waxing lyrical, I get carried away.
But it also shows your passion. It also shows you're authentic. It also shows that there's interest in what you're doing, because it could just be purely academic in the sense it could just be a job. But listening to you, I can see it was more than a job. It was something.
Well, if I wanted just a job, I'd stick to law. I was even a magistrate in the UK, for crying out loud. But it was like every day was a chore getting up. But when you teach children, especially when you see that light come into their eyes when they start decoding with meaning, you just see, gosh, you can actually make a difference in this child's outcomes later on.
And what you're saying is so relevant, because sometimes we forget that these children are our future. These children are the next generation. These children are the ones who are going to go ahead of us. And what we learn, especially at the elementary level, is what typically follows them for the rest of their lives.
I think people underestimate the importance of primary education, because now when I'm looking at CVs and I'm looking at this degree and this guy you get the split infinitive, you get bad punctuation. Even with Grammarly, they still get bad punctuation. And I'm thinking, these are things that they wouldn't correct in secondary school. It's in primary that you know where you subject and predative and comparative and all those things, the verb, the adjectives, those are taught in primary. And just how to write a letter, which maybe ChatGPT will do it for you now, but you still need to be able to correct it and make it your own, and shorten things. And so I start looking at, I know it sounds a bit anal, but I start looking at primary education a bit more detail to see, and if you get bad pronunciation or enunciation or bad spellings, which again, the computer can do for you, but then are you doing American spelling and it's all about context. So how do you even correct what you see on the computer? So yeah, primary education is the big thing for me.
So this is the director of Banana Island Living. I'm still here to the podcast. I'm still thinking about Banana Island Living.
Yeah. Oh, the podcast is just the plaything of an idle hour, The real work is done at the school, but the podcast, I just thought, I need to get a life instead of just all about education, all about teaching. I need to do something slightly different. So yeah.
But the podcast has done something. I listened to the one with the children, and it touched my heart.
That was interesting. We forget what those kids know and what they think, and that was educational for me as well, because I see them, but I you don't really get to get that sort of treat them like grown-ups and let them tell you what they're thinking. So yeah,
Yes.
it was interesting.
Yes, it's always good, so great to hear kids' perspectives, isn't it?
Yeah.
So coming back to you, okay, so you were in England and then you decided you wanted to give back to our country, Nigeria,
I had a rush of blood to the head.
which has paid off for many people.
My child is my cost center number 3 went off to boarding school. And so I thought, oh, freedom, yes. let me I was the touchdown mom for how many years doing my kid's school was miles away from home because I was looking for the best school for this child. And I'll
Nigeria.
never do that again, driving miles just to go to the best school. So I did that for how many years straight, And then once she got off to boarding school, she was begging to go to boarding school. So she was tired
Oh,
of being at home with her. Well, because
oh,
all the others, she was like the last of the hackers, and everybody had left
oh,
home except her. And she
okay.
said she was lonely, and we lived, on a farm, and it wasn't great. So she said, "Help, let me out of here." So she left, and I thought, freedom, let me go and let me go and try something in Nigeria. So yeah, that was interesting. It was
Hmm.
character building.
But here we are. And how many years ago was that?
About 10, 11 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago.
Well, you've done a good job
I mean, I
because
tried to start it without actually going myself to employ people from afar, but it didn't quite work out. But
that
I'm
was
still going. And
pre-COVID,
now I
right?
commute between the UK and here. It was pre-COVID, yes. Thank God it was pre-COVID. Can you imagine trying to do something in COVID?
I know. I know.
Yeah.
So God was preparing you for that. So but
Mm.
I left Nigeria in the 80s. And so whenever I think about education, I age myself by, I talk about primary school, I talk about Form 5, and some of my nieces and so look at me with a strange look.
For
So
5 years.
they're like, Auntie, what are you talking about? So yeah, so you come back to Nigeria and you started this school from
Mm.
scratch.
Yeah, I mean, basically build a site and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm a director. I had support, but yeah. And I was involved from far away, and then I came back to try and work there. I thought I
Mm.
could do it remotely, but yeah, it wasn't
But
easy.
realized that wasn't going to be the thing. So
Probably not, yes.
how is that going for you? I know it's successful, but as I said, I'm always looking at education from Nigeria, primarily from my understanding when I lived there
Yeah.
in myself. So what's the state of education now in Nigeria? We're talking about, I know your school is private, so can you talk a little bit about the
Well,
transition we've
yeah,
seen?
funny enough, my co-podcaster on Sade on education, that's what we tried to do. She's from a state background.
Okay.
She was a commissioner for education in Lagos State, so she really had her finger on the pulse of public school education. And I speak from a private school prism.
Mm.
So yeah, east shall be east and west shall be west, and near the twain shall meet, as they say. We thought we could meet and get a perspective on this. And there's some really good education in Nigeria. I was teaching in London not that long ago, actually, because having come here, I did go back and did some more further training and then some placement in some school just to get more current. And what I noticed is children that come from Nigeria, they do incredibly well. They're usually streets ahead. They're better. They're ready to learn. They're not faffing around. And then about the second or third term, without strong parental input or good or high expectations from the teachers, they tend to slip back.
From Nigeria?
And Nigeria and West Africa, actually, because
Mm.
a lot of the children come from very strong family backgrounds at home with great
Mhm.
support system. You can't really misbehave in class and get away with
That's
it.
what I mean. That's why I
And so
asked that question.
who born
Who is
you, as
your
they say?
father and
Yes.
your mother? And you're going
But
back home to
then,
say, what?
yeah, but then when you get there, they tend to say, oh, I can get away with this, or I can get away with that. And maybe the teachers don't have high expectations. So, I mean, children will rise to whatever occasion you put them in.
That's so
When I
true.
looked at the statistics in England years ago, when they were doing the London Challenger stuff, African children were one of the best performers and the white lower class or working class, white lower class, working class children were the least performing demographics. When they get to secondary school, that changes, and we don't know what happens there. So what is it? These are children who are high achieving. Is it the system? Is it lower expectations? They start getting into trouble. They start getting more suspensions, So there's a lot to unpack there, which I don't want to go in. But in Nigeria, up until the 90s, I think the education here, most of the people doing so well abroad, they come from Nigeria.
Yes.
All these top doctors and stuff. People used to come here to look for our universities. I mean, say what you will. These were one of the top performing people, immigrants, wherever you go.
Yes.
So, hey, it can't be that bad. It couldn't have been that bad. Now I know, because the system has been decimated. We still have incredible primary schools, incredible secondary schools if you can afford them. The university system has been so decimated that when you don't have middle class or working class people sending their children, their first thought is to get their children abroad. Well, how are you going to raise the standards? Yeah. And we need to have what we had during COVID, when people realized they couldn't go abroad for medical treatment. Post-COVID, the amount of really good hospitals that have come up in Nigeria is incredible. And I've seen people coming from the US to come to medical tourism in Nigeria now. I went to hospital last week and I was so impressed. I said, I'm never going back to England to go and be waiting on the NHS again in one day with cheap HMO. So it really worked. 300,000 a year, you can't even, that's like 2 months HMO. And it covers everything. You get medication, and the equipment was top of the line.
In Nigeria.
In Nigeria. Then I went to Luth, to the dentist, to get my x-rays. They had top of the line x-rays. I had my results immediately. They gave it to me. And I thought, gosh,
impressive.
If you unfetter these institutions from government palaver, they will do well, because the people are smart. The people in Nigeria are smart.
Yes.
Whether it's for crookery or for good, they will do well. So, yeah. I have children in my school. They're reading at age 3. If you put it to them, they will go. Every child goes at their level. I find children who are able, if you facilitate them, they'll fly. If they're not challenged, they start having behavior issues. Yes, so if you challenge the children, they'll rise to any occasion, as long as they're having fun, as long as it's not by force, as long as they have that spark in their eyes when they come in the morning and they're bounding in. Hey, what are we doing today? You got them. They're just ready. But if they're dragging their feet and everything is a chore, maybe you need to look at the way you're delivering that. But even in the state schools here, the children are desperate to learn. You have a class. I went to KC one time and they had 200 in a class.
200?
200. I might be better now, but this was a few years ago. I don't know what it's like now. But, these kids were ready. They were ready.
Yes, and that's what I always say. There's a hunger. There was always a hunger in Nigeria for education.
Education. The local women who are selling by the roadside, are making money to send their children to private school.
Yep.
And then the child will come home and they'll pay for lesson teacher again.
Yes.
Yes. It just goes to show. So yeah, we just need an enabling environment.
We just need an enabling environment. Yeah.
I mean, coming from a private school, and this is a segue, but coming from a private school background, what you call a champagne socialist, I genuinely believe that it shouldn't be, I don't think you can stop you. I don't think you should stop people, but it really shouldn't be a default position to send our kids abroad, because I don't see what value added it is to the society. And certainly the government should not be subsidizing anybody going abroad to study. I don't think so. These kids, those who have the privilege and the money to go abroad will not even come back. So what's the point.
Okay, we're having some internet problems here.
That's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm burning down the bridge that brought me across, as they say.
No, but you're talking truth. You're talking truth. When we look at our people, we are very resourceful. As you said, we have that hunger for education is there. The competitive spirit, the want to do well, to see someone and say, my child will be do better than me. That's always been our culture. And
they don't envy people who do well. They just say, with a fair wind behind my back and God on my side, I will be there. It's favor. It's God's favor.
God's favor.
Yes.
But
they don't have a problem
with
you doing well. They don't have a problem with anybody doing well or doing better than them. They just want to surpass that person or meet that person. Yeah. There's no malice there.
And there's a deep understanding that it takes hard work.
Yeah.
To think that we don't even say studying, we say read. Go and read your book.
And read your book.
Yes.
I mean, remember that song, Batamia do Koka. From way back then, if you read your book, your shoes will be going, that means you'll be walking tall. And if you don't read your book, your shoe will just be dragging on the floor. Kind of thing. And that's what you start out with. So it's always been that hunger, even more than people who brought us the Western education, I think.
Yeah, of course. Because as I told my children, I said, you saw it. You just had to leave your house and drive down the street and you knew the difference between whether you read your book or when you didn't.
Yes.
Because you will be driving in the car and you see, not that there's anything wrong with someone selling on the street and peeling orange, but you knew the difference was education. And it was ingrained in
having access to it. Yeah.
Yes.
Access to it.
Yes. Yeah. So coming back to you and your passion and your love for what you do, you said something that really touched me again. You said the children come to school and you see the spark in their eyes and they want to learn. We talk about your school now. So
yeah, but then other schools as well. Like I said, Nigerian children want to learn. There's a hunger. I mean, we employ I think this year we've got like 3 youth coppers or 4 youth coppers who are doing the national service with us. It's so lovely to see the cynicism has not been dragged into them. They're still quite,
awesome.
Idealistic, and they like to see somewhere where they can actually be useful. I have one that was supposed to go for an operation and she was postponing, and we're all begging her, don't postpone. He said, these children, we want, we're doing our assessments. I want us to make sure that all the children pass that assessment before I go. And we said, no, go, we'll be fine. They really do care. And there are people here who really see what they like to see, that they're making a difference. They like, if the society worked, the sky's the limit. It's just so depressing and soul destroying to see such genuineness, such passion, such enthusiasm, such hunger being crushed. And
yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the things you learn quite quickly in Africa. Let me speak about Nigeria. It's from the sublime to the ridiculous. Yes. You see people who are so happy with so little. And it sort of gives you your perspective that I better shut up if I'm complaining.
Yes.
I am super privileged. And on the other scale, your psyche does get brutalized a bit because you get used to seeing poverty and you see people, the inequalities and so on. So it's to wake up and make sure you give yourself that talking to, that you don't become that person who is inured to other people's situations. And like when I go abroad every time, because I live half in the UK and half here, I said the first week, when I'm back, I'm so nice to my staff. Thank you so much. So you've cleaned that room. Oh, I'm so grateful.
And then
after two months, I said, didn't you see that?
Yeah.
Then you have to catch yourself. I said, stop it. So you have to constantly give yourself that talking to. And just not be that ghastly person who takes everything for granted.
I sometimes wonder if it's not cultural too. We've been brought up to say, beg, shut up. Because we are a society of respect where age matters. So everyone is kind of looking, okay, I'm older than you, so you're raising your shoulders, that sort of thing. And so sometimes I wonder if we feel that by talking nicely or by, I appreciate you, if we are not thinking that we're making ourselves soft or not relevant.
Yeah.
That's a theory that I have, not a theory per se, but that's a question I've asked myself over and over, that if we can learn how to say the same thing, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Would that start making a difference in leadership?
Do you know, society is changing. Younger people will not take it. Even with all this senior, they'll say, it's a toxic environment. I'm off. Even if they don't have another job, they're going.
Tell
So
me
they will
more.
teach you. They will teach you
Uh,
whether you like it or not. If you want to keep your stuff, you have to be more empathetic. All
mhm.
that young girl of I'm older than you. When we were there, we didn't talk to our elders like that.
That's
We'll go
gone.
because you will have nobody. You wake up one good calm day and you'll be doing the work by yourself.
Internet. That
Yes,
has got.
so yeah. They'll just go home and sit down and work and go on TikTok. They don't care if they don't have any money, they have no job, somebody will pay their bills. They'll be okay. But I think, I think in Nigeria and in Africa now, as we get more westernized, for good or ill, people are less resilient and
Mm.
more apt to take offense. Like in
Mm.
those days, everybody said, "Shut up, Joe." And who cared? It
I
wasn't a
know.
big deal. The
No
context
feelings.
was, it wasn't, the context was not to put you down or anything. It was like joshing, it's banter. You
Mm-hmm.
go to the market, they abuse you, abuse them
But up
back,
there.
Nobody, it wasn't
Mhm.
personal.
Yeah,
And every older person would say, who is your mother? Kneel down there.
I
You didn't think that
know.
person was toxic. You
You
just
did.
thought, Auntie, you two, you go back, Auntie, you should forgive me. What is it? What have I done? So the
Yeah,
two of you will laugh at each other, and it wasn't a
yeah.
big deal. So I think it was a more healthy relationship. There was a lot of respect, but
Mhm.
then because there was love underlying everything. Now
Yes.
you can't take that for granted. In fact, now you assume people mean bad stuff, even
Yeah.
when they don't,
Yeah.
not helped by the pastor who says somebody is doing you or somebody is, it's stoking culture wars, stoking racist wars, stoking envy, stoking malice. Before, even if somebody is doing you, you say, "Hey, all you people doing me, oh, you
Yes.
speak it out there and you let it go. You don't need to go into therapy."
I know. So there are pros and cons of everything because, as I said, internet, which you agreed with me, has opened up the windows to so much good, but a lot of bad too. Because you
Yeah,
don't know when you don't know what you don't know, you accept what you have, right? But
true.
now, as you say, there's so much more awareness of, my feelings are hurt. And
Yeah, my feelings are hurt.
yeah.
Even if the person, and because it's not so, people are not really dealing one to one so much. It's
Mm.
all filtered either through email or text, or so the nuance of the thought behind that text, it might come out really poor
Yeah,
because you
that's so
didn't
true.
articulate well.
Mhm.
So the person goes off
Mm.
and you get cross because they went off, and then you
Right.
don't talk to each other. Then it becomes my new favorite word, toxic. So
Mm.
so yeah, it's all, and then we also do a lot of PSHE and PSED in with
Mhm.
children now. Who's a bully? We're becoming
Amazing.
more aware of bullying, but we're telling them, okay, somebody does something to you once is not bullying.
That's
Okay,
good.
it's an incident. It's when it becomes consistent or a habit or more than once, or then it's bullying. So you have to talk to that person, show them your boundaries, whatever it is. And then we teach them who's an upstander, who's a bystander, So we do all that role play so you don't necessarily take offense immediately. And when they're like age 5, 6, they start telling on each other, "Oh, he touched me. Oh, he pushed me. Oh, did you do it on purpose? Did he do it on purpose? Were you hurt? If you were not hurt, it's not the end of the world. Tell him you don't like it and move on." You have to teach them resilience as well. Not everything you must the teacher go off on. And I see that a lot. I saw it a lot in the UK where things are blown out of proportion, especially with Black boys.
Mhm.
Sometimes they don't know how to navigate friendships or trying to find their space within a group. So they act up a bit, but with just coming from a different prism, or there's mutual suspicion. And then it becomes a self-perpetuating prophecy.
And
Yeah.
also, I feel sometimes there's not much, you have to teach cultural awareness. And now that we have more immigration into spaces that were not typically as integrated, you got to teach, you got to educate the educators on what to expect. Black boys, unfortunately, have been given the negative stigma
label.
They've been labeled in a negative way, and they're just being boys.
Yeah.
So
they're more likely to see their being boys as aggression.
Than
any other.
It's just boys.
And then they start thinking, oh, they're picking on me anyway. I might as well be aggressive. So
it's a vicious cycle.
It is a vicious cycle. But then also the culture of low expectations. These kids, a lot of them, especially coming from Nigeria, they're bright. And if they're not bright, they're brighter than the ones who were there.
Yeah. And they've been challenged a lot.
The teacher expects them not to be. Yeah. So there was one particular boy, and I looked at him. He had a Nigerian surname, but I think the mother was from the West Indies or something, and he wasn't achieving as much as I thought he should be. And I came in the second term to that school. So I called his parents. I said, this is off the record. This boy and I are going to wear the same trouser. You are a Nigerian man and your son is not reading? Are you kidding me? What are you doing? They said, oh, he's delayed this. I said, yes, but I've tested him. The first thing you want him to do, as soon as he enters that class, if he doesn't say good morning, he goes out and then he comes back in. So you show him what you expect of him. And I said, if he doesn't, just in case he comes back home and says, I'm picking on him, I'm not picking on him. Break time, he's going to have his lunch and come back, and he's going to work with me. If he doesn't finish that work within the allotted time, he and I are going to miss our break. He will eat, he will play 5 minutes, and then we'll go back and do the work. By the time we did this for 2 weeks, boy was finishing his work in the time I loved it. The Senko wasn't happy because she said, oh, you're a bit hard on him. I said, yes, but don't you think life will be harder on him if he leaves here without achieving anything? A black male child not being able to read? Where is he going to go?
Yes.
What is he going to do?
It will be
he will be excluded from school by the time he's in year 6. So I see what you mean, but I've squared it with his parents and they're happy with it. I'm going to give him homework every day. So and I want it signed. So you have to take interest in the children.
Changing the rhetoric.
Well, I think it's just to let the child know that you're on his case. You care deeply. Once children know you care, even when you're hard on them, they take it. It's if they think you don't like them.
Right. That is so true.
It's hard. The work just gets harder.
That's so true.
And it's to convince the parents that, look, you come in, you have you have problems with me. Fine. I'm sure I'm not the best teacher in the world, honestly. But before we have that discussion or it degenerates, let's agree that we're on the same side. We're on the side of the child. I'm not on your side. You're not on my side. We're on the side of that child. If we start with that prism, we're good. Any discussion we have after can only come with positive outcomes for that child.
That's so true. And so that brings me to a question I have, coming back to your school now, coming back to Nigeria. Now, what provisions do they have, if any? I'm not sure when I say if any, what I actually am saying is, or what I want to ask is, do you have any like special needs, any program for special needs in your school? Or if not your school, are you seeing more of that being done in Nigeria?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's just that, I don't know what's happening, but there's a huge, and I say huge, relative to what we had before, number of children now with special needs. People are saying it's post-COVID. People are saying all sorts of things. I don't know what. Delayed speech, neurodivergent, children who are just not ready to learn, no matter what age they are. So we're having a huge amount of speech therapy. We're having, you name it, we're doing that. And we're breaking it down. And we have children as young as 15 months. We're doing physical
in
therapy,
months.
like walking on, we get them to start walking on a beam, just balancing, basic things like that, and using pegs to, there's no strength in their hands. We call it iPad fingers. They can't separate the digits, you know? So you're playing games like Peter Pointer, where are you? To be tall, where are you? Ruby ring, where are you? The Tommy Thumb, where are you? And they're struggling to do that.
Oh.
So
Mm.
it's an uphill task, but we find that if we put these things in place that young, by the time they get to age 4, they're ready.
They're ready.
And the parents have to work along with us. The idea is to make it interesting and make it fun. You make it into a song because they'll remember things with songs more. And taking off their shoes is one of their goals, early learning goals. Can you take it off? Can you put it back on? Can you just give them chores, keep them busy? They have to take their own bags, no matter how young they are. They have to unzip it themselves. They have to use their table mats, go and get their table mats, put it on the table, set the table, zip it up, tidy up, put their rubbish in the bin. They forget they're crying by the time they do all that.
And they see their mates doing it too, I guess.
Yeah, and they tidy up. They learn where things belong. They just like being busy, and it just becomes routine. So behavior issues are a lot less. And so, how do you come? They don't listen to me at home. They listen because there's consistency, and they see everybody else doing it, and this is the way it's done.
Yes.
With a lot of love, and you don't do an activity for too long. If you see they're getting bored, there's a choice, and we read to them every day because, again, vocabulary. If they have the vocabulary and they're speaking, there's less frustration and there's less behavior issues.
Yes.
So we have a target of doing 5 keywords every week that we will reinforce and reinforce and reinforce. And those keywords will go into the books we read, the songs we sing, the activities we do. So by the end of a 13-week term, just even if they get 2 or 3 from each of those, times 13, that's a huge bank of vocabulary for an 18-month-old or a 2-year-old. And that, again, you're laying the building blocks.
Yep, the foundation is strong. Yeah.
Language is so important. Speaking and listening, we play a lot of listening games because we find that because of visuals, again, with the iPad or the tablets, listening is becoming an issue. So
even for adults,
we don't have videos at all, except when we're doing a particular thing, until they're about 5 or 6. They do ICT from age 3, but it's to know, moving the mouse. So we go really old school, using the mouse and pressing. So they separate the digits again, and then they learn where's the technology in the home, which one is technology, all of that stuff. But under that, we play sound stories. So they have to listen to the stories, and you ask questions, and they said, how many times did the chicken lay an egg? They have to count how many. They have to listen and tell you, the chicken laid 3 eggs. And then go, how many eggs did that lay? It laid 2 eggs. So you're forcing them to listen. And the more they're listening, the more they're calmer. And then they go for listening walks where they listen to sounds in the environment. And we come back and say, what sound did you listen to? You hear, I heard Okada.
Which is relevant.
And so which one came first? It's very important. Again, listening to sounds and in the order in which, and we know the things like body percussion, when they're clapping, when you go, is different from. So again, when they're reading, to be able to know the order in which sounds are and to repeat it exactly the way they hear it. So you put in all those building blocks quite early. So when it comes to early reading, early phonics, and it just makes life a lot easier, and they enjoy what they do more. And we do believe in memorizing poetry. We still do that.
I think we're going to have to do a part 2 of this because I am so fascinated by all what you're saying and all what you're doing that, oh my gosh, I'm almost like, okay, should we end this now? I mean, I tried to make this 30 minutes, but
we can end it here.
We're going to have to do a part 2 because I've learned so much. I mean, the main topic was what is the state of education in Nigeria, but now you've blown me away.
I think education in Nigeria is great. I really do think. You just have to be discerning and know what you want and works for your child. It's not all
Well,
bells and whistles. You won't see all the fantastic tennis courts, but in terms of core learning
which is
and
important.
outcomes for the children. I mean, if you're well off enough, you can do all those things outside of school. We have good weather. The children go out in all weathers, whether it's raining or it's sunny. There's no such thing as when it's raining, we make boats, we do floating and sinking science, all of that. So there's no such thing as bad weather. There's bad dressing for the weather. We're in Africa, for crying out loud. We're very lucky.
Very lucky. Yes, we don't
There's
have
no reason why we can't use what we have in our environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Where were you when I was going to school?
Probably my mother's school, laboring under Pontius Pilate.
Right. You better read your book.
Yeah,
that was what we heard.
We had to memorize vast tracts of the Bible, remember?
And
for your punishment.
Multiplication, you better know when they say 12
times
times
table.
13. You better know
times table. Yes. I remember.
What
did I do? There was one punishment I had. I had to memorize Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help coming from the Lord who made heaven and earth. Oh God! Bitter, but it's stuck in my head.
But look at it.
I remember writing imposition when you had to write. If you do something wrong, you have to write how many lines?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Did you write lines?
Yes, but I'm wondering, but I think
you'd strap 3 biros together so you can write 3 lines at the same time.
I think that would have been my younger sibling, not me.
I will never be rude again. I will never be rude again. I will never be rude again.
Stop them with rubber band. Oh, yes, boy. Oh, yes.
But it's been great speaking to you.
I really have enjoyed this episode. So before we go, though, you got to tell people where they can find you online. I know I introduced you as the podcast host of Banana Island Living Podcast, but where else can they find you? On your LinkedIn?
Well, again, LinkedIn is the place, isn't it? I really don't do these LinkedIn as Facebook. LinkedIn as Facebook doesn't work for me. Judge not, so that you shall not be judged, or whatever it is they say. I do not post pictures of my congratulating my daughter on winning something or the other. But if you've got something work related or whatever, you can just message me. I don't post often, but when I post, it's strictly professional. But you can reach me on LinkedIn, yeah. But I'm not on social media. I don't have I don't have personal Instagram. I don't have personal anything. My Banana Island Living has Instagram, but then again, that's not me alone. So
that's professional.
LinkedIn, it's all business. Yeah, I'm not a Facebook person. Yeah, no, I'm not bugain, as they say. I'm just lazy. These things require commitment, and I don't do commitment. My attention span is a nanosecond.
That used to be me, but now I can say to you, my viewers, you can find me on my website. You have a website, don't you?
I do.
Yes. So in addition to LinkedIn, there's
Banana Island School and Banana Island Living. You can get me on there. Yeah.
Okay. So folks,
I answer my emails there. Yeah. Mail mmarriott@bananaislandschool.com or mmarriott@bananaislandliving.com. I do answer.
You do answer. So folks, this has been great. Yeah. Hasn't it been great? I always bring you the best guests possible from Africa.
You're so kind, and so you've got great energy, as they say. Thank you.
I love it. I love the people I meet, and I would like to think that they love me back, but I really do love them.
I sure do. I mean, nobody else could have got me to do a video. You know how I don't really do videos, but yeah, I have a lot of time for Paula. You're a star. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for you, my viewers, I want to thank you for always tuning in. You know where you can find me on my website, which is chattingwiththeexperts.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, which used to be my main and only social media platform, but I've moved on to Instagram. Not moved on. I am also on Instagram. My handle there is @chat_podcast_expert. No, it's reversed.
That was a senior moment. Yes.
Yeah, that was a senior moment. So let me correct it.
Pop those vitamins, baby. Pop those vitamins.
I do need to take up
omega-3, whatever it takes.
And I'm actually on Facebook now. Just
Oh,
look for me.
good.
Yep, it's taken me years, but I'm finally
Yeah.
on Facebook. So
Yeah.
thank you,
So
Sade,
thank
for
you. Thank you
saying
very much.
yes.
Thank you.
This
Thank you. I
has
really
been
appreciate.
incredibly good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.